This is VikesNow, and I'm Dustin Baker. We're going to cover the 10-2 Vikings after a 27-22 triumph over the New York Jets, who were a 7-4 team before yesterday. In the AFC's, I think it was 7th seed, and that's where they remain. And nipping at their heels are the Los Angeles Chargers, who lost to the Raiders, helped out the Jets, and the New England Patriots, who I believe have a tiebreaker over the Jets. But this is not a Jets show. I'm wearing green for Christmas, not for the Jets or the Packers, so don't get it twisted. We're going to cover the Vikings and the reaction, the broad takeaways to the win over New York. The Vikings are 10-2 for the first time since 2017, and every time in franchise history that they have this record or better, 11-1 like 1998 and 1970-something, they usually get to the NFC Championship or a Super Bowl way back in the day. I believe they've started with this record or better 8 times, and they have lost in the divisional round twice. That was in the 70s. And then in the all the other times, they either get to the conference title game or the Super Bowl. So there's some historical omens there. Now, those teams usually beat the piss out of the opposition from time to time, especially the 98 team. This team doesn't do that, and that's my first talking point. So every week on this show, I've talked about this fantasy land of perhaps that this could be the week that the Vikings, I don't even want them to, I'm not asking them to win 31-0. I'm asking them to win 31-17. Let's try that out for size. Get used to this winning so we don't have to sweat out every game in the second half and in particular the fourth quarter. But I think I've settled after yesterday. The Vikings are up 20-3, and they found a way to make it their style of game by allowing the Jets back into the damn thing because of a horrendous third quarter on offense. And the fourth quarter defense, bend but didn't break, and there we are at 10-2. So I have of the mentality now. We have enough sample size, 12 games of an NFL season, that I don't think that the Vikings are going to find a complete game and stomp the shit out of somebody, and then we can do the rah-rah thing. We're like, oh, I knew it was in there somewhere. They're going to do it, baby. I feel like it's a Super Bowl contender because they just beat the Jets 41-10, or they beat the Lions in the Lions' house 38-3. I don't think we're going to see that. I think, every week we hear some player or coach say, the scary thing is we haven't even played a complete game yet. My response is, yes, you have. These are your version of complete games. Whether it's erasing a deficit at Buffalo, squandering a 20-3 lead against the Jets, I think this is the best that they can do. The first-year head coach trying to gain his footing. It's marvelous that the dude is 10-2 in his first year. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining about this tendency or mentality of squeaker games. It gets them ready for the postseason, as A.J. Mansour on Vikings territory wrote last night, and you can go read that today. It's that they're going to be battle-tested when it comes to the postseason because every game the Vikings win outside of Week 1 is like a playoff game, especially in the fourth quarter. But I have surrendered the thought, because we're into December, that the Vikings will become a 10-2 team that we're accustomed to in Vikings history that eventually steps on the necks of the other team. I don't think it's coming. The schedule's certainly easy, and if they do it against the Lions, great. I will be happy to be wrong. But I'm convinced that the way that the DNA is for the 2022 Vikings is that they are going to win close games, and every now and then they're going to get their ass beat. So every 2 months, there's going to be a beatdown. Unfortunately, I don't know the timetable. That would be mid-February, so we're fine there. I don't have to worry about a beatdown until the Super Bowl's done and won. But probably repetitive here, but I don't think that hitting their stride and being this really sweet team that just beats the piss out of people, I don't think that's coming. Maybe next year when they do some roster moves, have a draft class, get these Lewis Cine back healthy, Andrew Booth. But I've accepted this, that when they kick off Sunday, I am assured that the score margin, if the Vikings win, will be something like 38-31. That's what it's going to be. It's not going to be a romp. Not going to happen. We've already seen that shit by now. So embrace it, applaud it, cherish it. This is the thing. The Vikings win close games. Somehow they're 9-0 in one-score games. And my goodness, How delightful is that? How weird is that? All right, number 2 for reaction, broad takeaways is that Jalen Reagor, little by little, is getting acclimated to the offense. I think he was he was a contributor on 2 or 3 offensive plays, that mini bomb from Kirk Cousins before he was just destroyed by the defender. And Reagor tracked back and grabbed it out of the sky and looked like the first-round pick that the Eagles knew and loved in the spring and summer of 2020 before he turned out not to be a big next big thing for them. But I think I kind of mentioned last week that I think there's a world where Reagor gets nudged into a WR3 role because he has the high-flying talent. He's fast. He can, he's a deep ball assassin if they just throw deep balls. So I think inch by inch, the more that Reagor is used, the better the trade looks in hindsight and the more profitable the Vikings offense will be. So I am here to formally endorse Jalen Reagor getting oodles of targets and snaps because he's not very old. The Vikings own his contract for what? Another, 1 or 2 years. He's a first rounder. That means that would go through the end of 2024. So 2 more years of Reagor. And he could reasonably, by the time he's developed and matured, he could be a WR2 or WR3 type. And I enjoy that they're using a commodity that they traded for, giving up the 4th round or whatever it ended up being. So Reagor, stock is up. This show is wrapping its arms around him. The next one is these damn third quarters are absolutely mind-numbing. Now, in the defense of the Vikings, they, during the first, I think it was 7 or 8 games, every third quarter was just horrible. Absolutely atrocious. Then they started to figure it out. I can't remember exactly because all these games run together. They're all so similar. But in the past maybe month, the third quarter hasn't been as tyrannical and nauseating. But yesterday was a return to the norm. They had 3 possessions, 10 plays, like 10 or 12 yards, and that was the whole reason that the Jets got back into the game. Now I know Ed Donatell's defense has this prowess, this affinity towards surrendering oodles of yards, another almost 400 yesterday, 500, whatever it was. They love to give up yards and make things interesting. I get it. You can cast all that type of criticism. We'll do that. That's fine. But the offense had the opportunity to make it a route to demoralize the Jets. But they didn't. They had 3 possessions in the third quarter, looked like buffoons. Every single possession, and you could feel that first one. Once they decided to defer, which I also endorse, as soon as they got the ball and it was 20-6, I was like, you could feel it from 35 miles out that here comes a 3-and-out. Bada bing, what was it? A 3-and-out. And it didn't get much better until the third quarter. Then the fourth quarter showed up, and they're like, all right, now we can go score. And it's like, why do we have this mindset that you just go to sleep, the lullabies at times? And I've been talking about these lullabies for 2 months, and they get fixed a little bit, and then we're back to the same spot. So it sounds like I'm being a real negative Nancy. No, I'm thrilled that the Vikings are 10-2 and heading to the postseason. But all they have to do is do this little stuff. Like, don't go to sleep during the third quarter of games. Or what I was pounding the table for last week, like whatever you do in the fourth quarter on defense, do that the whole game. If you're going to bend but don't break, you're going to surrender almost 500 yards, you might as well do it by blitzing the quarterback because they can't get much more yards than that, conceivably. So the third quarter is, again, back to the drawing board. The offense in the third quarters was so nasty that they let the Jets back into the game. 1 or 2 scores or a field goal would have pumped the brakes on the Jets' miniature comeback that didn't pan out. Number 4, Greg Joseph. Thank God he's back, at least for a game. He had all of his extra points, which felt, let's hang the banner, build the statue. And then he finally hit one from beyond 50, which it had been about 3 months since he drilled a field goal over 50 yards. And I'm here to report this man did this ad nauseum last year. One of the chief reasons that I was all about bringing Joseph back for a reclamation year is that he was 7 for 9 beyond or 50 yards and beyond in 2021. And that's what Harrison Butker was, one of the best kickers in the NFL. So I was like, well, at least the guy can hit from 50 and beyond. He'll figure out the under 50 stuff, and then I'm sure extra points will just be a crapshoot. Well, he wasn't even hitting from 50 until yesterday. So it was very refreshing to see Joseph hit all of his kicks And so he gets the praise, and hopefully that this is him getting right. On the podcast with McKinney and Ron Saw and Sally last week, I said, it's a law of averages. At some point, if this guy's a decent kicker, which I think we all believe is a decent kicker, he should be sitting on about 6 straight 50-yarders that he hits to make the math work. You don't have to be a huge stat guy or gal, but numbers mean something, and they usually have like a regression if they're too lofty, or a come to Jesus moment if they're too low. So in theory, all of these missed extra points, missed long field goals, we should be sitting on like a real jam session for Greg Joseph where he rattles off several in a row without messing up. All right, so I dug into kind of how this team's got to 10-2, because when you leave a stadium after bungling a 20-3 lead, you're like, how are they doing it? I love it. I love every second of it, but how are they doing it? They are forcing turnovers on defense. They're not turning the ball over on offense. Cousins has more interceptions that you would like, but with very few lost fumbles. So they rank 5th in giveaways in a good way. So turnovers, protecting the ball on offense, stealing the ball from the other team on defense. Low penalties. The Vikings rank 5th in fewest penalties. And then this wherewithal, this mandate that the Vikings win close games. Those are the only 3 things that this team does at an elite level. Now, their third down defense is getting better. Third down offense is improving, believe it or not, yesterday. So there's a lot of metrics where they're starting to get their groove. They're pretty good. But consistently throughout the entire season, there's 3 constants. Turnovers, forcing them, not creating them, or on offense, not giving the ball to the other team. Low penalties, and just like a godlike tendency to go win close games. Those are the 3 things that the Vikings do in an elite manner. And they were on display again yesterday, and that's why they won the game. They were up to their old bullshit, and in this vein, the bullshit was good. Rounding out the show, this one's the last big talker, if you want to call it that, and then I'll just pop a few stats out. But the defensive murderer's row that beset the Vikings on the schedule is over. What do I mean by that? Well, they played the Washington Commanders in Week 9, Hawkinson's first game, and that right now the Commanders are about the 11th best team on defense in the NFL per expected wins added. So he played the 11th best defense. They had a great pass rush. Vikings won that game. Then you started the real murderer's row, because the Buffalo Bills, Dallas Cowboys, New England Patriots, and New York Jets down the line per defensive DVA, 1, 2, 3, and 4. They played the 4 best defenses in football at the time that they played them, and they escaped the damn gauntlet with a 3-1 record. Now, of course, they got crushed against the Cowboys, because of course they did, and it couldn't be completely snazzy, but somehow they beat the Bills, which I still look back on like it's a haze, because I'm like, what? How did that happen? Beat the Patriots on Thanksgiving night, under the lights, at home, in prime time. And then the Jets yesterday, and however you want to describe that win. So the skies are parting. Now you're done getting the best of the best on defense. The Lions are horrendous at defense, and then the Colts, meh. If you think that they're better than meh, I invite you to go watch Sunday Night Football last night. Then the Giants, meh. And then who knows what the Packers will look like at that time, because I think they're about 1 loss away from total elimination, and the Bears have already been eliminated. So, exhale. The absolute, just this agenda of teams that were destined to be in the top 5 for defense. The Vikings have played them, and they have a 3-1 record to show for it. It's not necessarily going to be smooth sailing from here, but every week you look down at the schedule, you don't have to go, oh boy, that's the league's 3rd best defense. Oh, look at that. Now they're playing the 2nd best defense. They're going to get mainstream defenses that aren't, hellfire and brimstone. All right, 2 stat things. These things aren't really important for broad takeaways, but I noticed them this morning, and I wanted to share with you guys. That Tyreek Hill versus Justin Jefferson competition to see who wins the MVP. I still maintain if Jefferson hits 2,000 yards and wins the receiving yards sprint, he could get MVP votes. But now you look up, Tyreek Hill leads the damn thing by 102 yards. And it didn't even feel like Jefferson struggled yesterday, but Tyreek Hill had that big of a game. So through week 13, Tyreek Hill has 102 more receiving yards than your guy, Justin Jefferson. That's how good Tyreek Hill is. And if Jefferson wants to circumvent the race and go win the thing, now he's got to be 102 yards, 103 yards better than Tyreek Hill. And finally, I'll leave you on this note. Harrison Smith now has 5 interceptions. His career high in a single season is 5 interceptions that he's recorded twice before. This makes it a third time, and we still got 5 games to go. So at the ripe old age of 33, when some might say, oh yeah, the guy's slowing down a little bit, he's still getting picks. And I don't know why he handed the ball off to Patrick Peterson, who struggled to finish out a return against the Bills. Must have been a heat in the moment thing. But Harrison Smith is forcing turnovers at the age of 33. He's paid handsomely to do so. We know that per his contract. But it's really cool that, starting to hit his mid-30s, he's still putting a thumbprint on the Vikings defense. He might not be the demon in a good way that he was from 2012 until about 2019, 2020. But this is what great players, perhaps on a trajectory to the Hall of Fame, do. He's getting picks at age 33. He has 5, and that's right up there near the top of the league. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be back tomorrow to go through some of the surprises out of this game, and then we'll begin Ford Field Lions Week and see what's on the docket there. Skol, baby.